This investigation into the technology behind sustainable living raises questions about the value of eco-living, the different roles and responsibilities, and whether individual action is enough. This video takes a tour of a home which only uses 1/10 of the energy consumed by the average house.
Sunlight is the main thing that warms the house, and during the day when the sun has warmed up the conservatory, we open up the windows upstairs in the conservatory and the warm air from the conservatory goes into the house, and that's generally been enough for our needs.
This learning material explores the problem of increasing greenhouse gas emissions. This video looks at the design of Hockerton, an ecological community in the United Kingdom.
We love living in the house. It's very warm when you want it to be warm and cool when you want it to be cool. I think the thing about Hockerton is we have to think about how we manage the 26-acre site in an environmentally friendly way.
This video demonstrates renewable energy technology in Denmark.
We're always looking for energy, and we need energy all the time. So for that reason, we also needed to be more independent. We are also a proud people in Denmark, and we want to be independent from sources coming from abroad.
This video explores communities in India who are taking charge of their natural resources.
We should bring in a regime to manage the natural resources so that people feel confident and they are able to manage their, of course, natural resources at their own.
This video investigates how a community and a utility company achieve mutual benefit from a sustainable approach.
Our aim was, as an urban design company, to not give them the idea that they're living in a large energy station, but to give them the idea that they're living in a genuine human environment.
This video examines how innovations in sustainability can be spread throughout communities.
Consumers are now seen as the initiators of innovation and much more choosy, but they're actually more active in shaping the products that emerge and certainly shaping which are successful or not.
When I walked in, I thought, this is a house I like the look of. It just looks nice. It looks like a nice place to live. Seemed like a good thing to do, to be involved in saving energy and in a house that's really a political statement in itself.
I wasn't sure whether I'd really like it, but I gradually found I was getting more and more interested and more excited at the prospect of just seeing how it would all work.
Helen and David Croker have recently moved in as tenants to a house that's an environmental landmark. It was designed by world-leading green architects Brenda and Robert Vale. Their vision? To build an urban home as self-sufficient as possible in heating, electricity and water. Their chosen site? The small town of Southall, just 10 kilometres from David Pickle's energy agency in Newark.
A lovely piece of serendipity, the Vales. Professor Brenda and Dr. Robert Vale bought a plot of land within the district and built their home. And they built their home to autonomous standards, and they also built their home to zero heating standards. What really impressed me about the Vales is how ordinary the house looks, and yet environmentally it's extraordinary.
The house has no central heating system at all. Its orientation and design maximise passive heat gains from the sun. Super insulation prevents the heat from escaping.
Basically, the sunlight is the main thing that warms the house, and during the day, when the sun has warmed up the conservatory, we open up the windows upstairs in the conservatory and the doors downstairs. So the cool air comes out of the house and the warm air from the conservatory goes into the house, and that's generally been enough for our needs. That combined with the fact that body temperature of the people within the house and the cooking, if we have the oven on, that warms the house up too. So all those things have really been enough to keep the temperature nearly always above 20 degrees inside the house.
The wood-burning stove provides occasional backup heating when necessary.
Since since we've been here, we've had the wood stove on 4 times, I think. It was more because the weather was grey and dreary and we felt like it would be nice and comfortable and cosy to have it on. The temperature hadn't really dropped below 19 degrees inside. And so we probably could have got by without it.
It's a maintenance manager's dream to have a housing stock with no heating systems. Because if you actually look at the way your budget is spent, it's replacing boilers, it's repairing boilers, it's servicing boilers. You think of all the pumps and the valves and the pipes and the leaking radiators. Simplifying the hardware in the house is a big long-term cost benefit.
Converting solar energy to electricity requires advanced technology, a £15,000 array of photovoltaic cells. It's connected to the national grid to export excess electricity or import it when required. In practice, how independent is it possible to be from a mains electrical supply?
We're net importers of electricity. The main requirements are for heating the water, and the stove has a big requirement. Other uses are low consumption or only used for short periods. The photovoltaic system produces a peak power, I think, between 1.5 and 2 kilowatts on a midsummer midday. So we think that it makes a substantial contribution. In summer it would be potentially capable of providing all the hot water.
Unlike electricity, there's no backup water supply. What challenges does this pose?
The fact that we're relying on rainwater for all our water supply does affect the way we think about water. If it rains, we're happy, which is probably a bit unusual for England. We have to make sure that the water level in the collecting tank stays high, and that's why I have to tap it and check it to make sure that it's high enough. We have to be aware of what we use, which is much more so than we would normally be.
Rainwater from the roof is filtered through sand before reaching the tanks in the cellar.
On occasions, if the sand filter's starting to clog up or something, we've just got the water level too low and turn on the tap and nothing happens. So that's a bit disconcerting, and you have to be aware that that's a possibility and keep on remembering to make sure the sand filter is full and running well and that that tank is at an adequate level.
Perhaps the most unusual feature of the house is the composting toilet.
The composting toilet system was one of the attractions of the house. The thought of all that lovely compost was one of the things that really did attract me. As far as using the toilets, there's really no difference at all, except that you don't have to flush. And when I go somewhere else now, I tend to forget to flush because I've got used to not having to.
Liquid and solid waste collect in a large tank below the toilet.
Once every 2 weeks or so, you need to empty out the water, and that's fine. No problem at all with that. It doesn't smell, it's not nasty at all. It's just a very simple, basic procedure. The worst thing is once every 2 weeks you have to rake it out level, which does induce a little bit of a smell. And then we shovel out the compost once every 6 months or so. And that's okay too. It doesn't smell, it's fine. It's just like lovely compost. The water that comes out of the composting system can be poured directly onto the trees or the hedges around the place or onto the compost heap, or it can be diluted down 1 in 10 to water the garden and the vegetables and the pot plants and anything like that. We have friends who come and say, don't eat the vegetables. I don't find that there's an enormous amount of work in operating the house. It doesn't intrude on the daily living, but it does make life just a little bit interesting, that you are interacting with the environment.
I feel a certain sense of responsibility not to consume too much, and I feel pleased that we can live in a house that in some way is setting the pace for energy saving.
Overall, the autonomous house uses only about 1/10 of the energy of a conventional one. But given the cost of the extra space and equipment, it's not affordable to all. Nor would everyone be willing to commit to this degree of sustainable living.
If we're to encourage an uptake in sustainable housing, we have to make it marketable.
We've gone for taking it into full 4-colour process, So the details inside actually about Collingham and about it being a wonderful place to live really do come out now, where in single colour it was looking...
Is it possible to design houses for the mainstream market that are both eco-friendly and affordable?
Traditional homes, but they're also, quite luxurious.
The final touches are being added to a brochure that markets houses with a difference. In the village of Collingham, a few kilometres from the autonomous house, is a new development that's firmly rooted in the commercial world. Millennium Green is an estate of 20 houses offering traditional comfort with environmental credentials.
That's right, we use Thermax on that one. Always on that...
Stephen Wright is managing director of the project.
And then we'll use the flat plate systems on the smaller properties.
The house building industry feels that the house buying public are very, very conservative in what they want, but I think if you go to the self-build shows, you realise that there's a whole number of people out there that actually are very, very dissatisfied with what's on offer, and they do want something different.
The benefit you're going to get on a day like today...
That distinctive extra, an environmental lifestyle but with low day-to-day maintenance, is what Wright's company is aiming to deliver. Spurred on by projects like the autonomous house, they're targeting a potential niche in the housing market.
We're a very entrepreneurial type of company. We like a challenge, we like to sort of be a little bit different, and so in a way it's the excitement of doing something that's not conventional.
The houses boast a range of features that make them energy efficient. Insulation, for instance, is 3 times that required in current building regulations. Where possible, the houses use materials that minimise their impact on the environment. The research and design of the houses has demanded a great deal of time and effort.
The difference is really the thought process that we've used to filter each design decision through, which is basically looking at the environmental impact of the materials, the environmental impact of the actual design of the buildings themselves, and how they work into the local community.
Though innovative in environmental terms, the houses look surprisingly traditional.
We didn't want to build something that was too space-agey and too futuristic. A, we didn't want to alienate any customers, and B, we sort of feel that to be sustainable it needs to not date, they need to fit in with their local environment. So we felt very important really to fit in.
The extra effort needed to design and build the houses has added around 10% to their standard costs. How much will the customer have to pay?
The additional cost over a standard house for, say, the 2-bedroom cottage that we're building is in the region of about £5,000 extra. But the savings in energy costs are probably in the region of £400 or £500 a year. But then when you come and sell the house, you recoup that money. That hasn't gone down the drain.
The acid test is, have the houses found a willing market?
We decided we wanted to come and live in Collingham, and we were actually looking at older properties, and then we saw that they were building Millennium Green development, and we were very interested in the way they were building and thinking about the future.
You work out where
right.
What
do you think, David? Well, you know where those are going, don't you?
Yeah,
we already had a green background. We had some knowledge of the facilities they were going to put into these houses, and that's what made sense to us. Yeah, I'll put on that, start a new panel there.
I like the way that I know that I'm going to be saving energy and not just wasting stuff which is polluting the environment, and I just like the way it's helping the environment.
But not all buyers conform to the green stereotype.
That fireplace there, look at that, how big.
Yeah.
It looks, didn't think it was really...
Steph always comes with the ideas, and when we first started this, he did say that we were his guinea pigs, and he would take whatever we said within reason, and that's how it all started.
We were told of this concept that it could be environment friendly, heating, water saving. But when you come from a place where you're everlasting paying out on all these things and you get them thrown at you, it's impossible not to have a go at it. When you see the fireplace like that, it looks so rough. The heating of the place is so minimum. And what with the hot water and the solar panels, what more can one wish for?
Normally we turn the central heating on about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which we find is sufficient then to last through the evening. Obviously the north side of the house doesn't get warm so quickly, but the south side is hot all the time. We don't need any other heating out this side.
With a design that favours passive solar gain and with such high insulation levels, could the houses have managed with individual room heaters rather than a costly central heating system?
If it never had central heating, we would not be a bit interested in it at all. It is a central heating side of it which we would be interested in, because otherwise you'd be one room be warm and the rest of the house would be cold, so central heating is imperative.
I'm not sure that I would have bought a house without central heating, without fully understanding what was in the house and how the systems were going to work.
The estate agents said to us that if we didn't put gas central heating in a village that has gas, then we might lose buyers. And we couldn't afford to lose buyers because everything we've done on this site, the thought process we've used goes back to that word, is it sustainable? And there's nothing sustainable about going bust.
Okay, well I'll just have a look inside your rainwater holding tank.
Apart from energy efficiency, about half the water requirement in the houses can be met by rainwater collection from the roof.
It's about 2.6 metres.
Good colours. Quite a depth in.
That's your...
The houses are a balance between environmental features and what their buyers will accept.
It's collected off the roof, comes down the dam.
They gave us the option that low energy lighting would be available, but we wanted some decorative lighting because low energy lighting, although it's very, very good, takes time to come on. So consequently, we've got to wait for it. So with the ordinary lighting, it's instantaneous. Otherwise, we'll be waiting for the light to come on.
At the end of the day, these are our customers and we need to get feedback from them as to what they want. There's no good us sitting on a drawing board designing something that we think people want, because we might be wrong. You may as well listen to them.
The extra effort and skill needed to build these homes has made much of the UK house building industry reluctant to follow. But it could be the most realistic attempt yet to bring sustainable housing onto the mainstream market.
I like being at the forefront of new technology for sustainable living. I must say it makes me feel proud to be part of this new venture, and I really hope that we can help the estate to develop even further.
This is the Findhorn Foundation Eco-Village, near Inverness in Scotland. Founded in 1970, the community is highly committed to more ecological ways of life.
A big part of our philosophy is that we want to, as we say, live lightly on the planet. For many hundreds, thousands of years, mankind has been abusing the planet and utilising resources, using more than he puts back.
In a practical way, we're trying to replace what was a caravan park with an ecologically sound houses, energy systems, water treatment systems, and so on, and try to demonstrate how we can actually live sustainably on the planet.
The buildings are constructed as far as possible from sustainable and ethically sourced materials.
Using materials that are renewable in the world, so we don't use hardwoods, and we try to get materials from sources which aren't abusive in the way they're produced. For example, we buy steel from certain countries where we know the process is kind to the environment.
The houses are designed to very high standards, even though many of them are self-built or self-finished constructions.
If their plans and their architectural stuff get through the PPG, our own planning group, it'll easily get through the local authorities because we have much higher standards of insulation and breathing wall technology we use, which is spreading around the world.
Breathing walls allow air to circulate more quickly, producing healthier houses. Triple glazing and super efficient insulation minimise heat losses. Low energy lamps and shared laundry and cooking facilities help reduce energy demand. The community's energy needs are met by a mixture of renewable and fossil fuels. A highly efficient gas-fired condensing boiler supplies heat to many of the buildings in the community. The site also has its own 75 kilowatt wind turbine.
Well, currently this machine's been up and operating for almost 13 years, and it's doing about 20% of our electrical needs, which is about 8 to 9% of the total energy requirement for the village. We're hoping to replace it with a larger machine within the next year.
The planned 850 kilowatt machine will supply up to 80% of their total energy needs. The community uses innovative and environmentally friendly technology to deal with an inevitable byproduct of any community: wastewater. It's a living machine sewage treatment plant. As the water passes through the system of tanks, plants and bacteria use contaminants in the water as nutrients, producing water that's good enough to be used for irrigation, but not as yet for drinking.
It's doing a natural process very naturally. It's producing water at the end of it, and it's allowing the plants to grow. The plants naturally take the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, like a forest does. So you've got a tremendous cycle happening here, which is really good for the environment. In fact, it's a win-win-win-win situation. It's new technology. I mean, it's breaking new ground, and we've been partially financed by the European Economic Community because they want to see how it works, because they're obviously looking for ways that they can economically produce ecological ways of dealing with things like sewage, water supplies and so on.
But there's more to the community than sustainable buildings and earth-friendly technology.
You want to live lightly on the planet and be kind to the environment, that comes at a price. So some of these houses aren't particularly cheap. They're not grand dimensions, but we have to pay for the type of stuff that we use. And it's not only about building, it's about living in a way that is cooperative.
We want to include the other aspects of sustainability, which are quite important. That's economic sustainability, it's social and cultural sustainability, and also what we call spiritual sustainability.
Community participation and involvement are an integral part of the project.
The people that are moving here are people that are interested in being part of this experiment. You know, can we demonstrate how to live sustainably? Can we have a community that's benign and still life-enhancing and fulfilling to be here? So that's the kind of people that are being attracted, both in the local area and also nationally and internationally. We get a few people from Europe and the States coming over as well.
This is Bedsed, the Beddington Zero Fossil Energy Development. It's an environmentally friendly, energy-efficient mix of housing, workspace and community facilities near Croydon in Surrey. Currently, it's the UK's largest eco-village.
Well, what we wanted to show was that you could develop green lifestyles that are actually more convenient, more desirable than carrying on with the typical suburban status quo. So what we've done is we've tried to take a small piece of suburbia and develop almost like a model village where people can live and work and play and actually have a higher quality of life at the same time as dramatically reducing their environmental impact.
To achieve this, Bedsed's designers have had to consider all aspects relating to sustainability, from reclaimed and renewable construction materials to minimum energy use.
The homes have been designed as sunny caves. They're very, very thermally massive. They're constructed out of dense, heavyweight concrete blocks with concrete floors, and they all face south. So we're getting about 30% of our annual space heating requirements just through passive solar gain. We're then able to store that passive solar gain from a very warm winter day to a colder winter day by having about between a week and a month's worth of thermal storage embodied in the structure.
Good draft proofing also helps to reduce heat losses. Heat exchangers in the roof cowlings use heat from outgoing air to warm the fresh air going into the buildings, again reducing energy requirements. Overall, the thermal requirements of the houses in winter is only about a tenth of a traditional British home. A combined heat and power plant makes up the thermal energy deficit. Wood chip waste that would otherwise go to landfill is the basis of the fuel. The CHP plant also generates some of the electricity used on the site. The rest comes from photovoltaic panels.
We've integrated solar electric panels into the window system and also into a roof light system. And then there's another set of photovoltaics placed actually on the roofs proper.
Installing the most efficient energy appliances reduces electricity demand, and other environmentally benign measures include recycling facilities in each eco-kitchen. Food miles are minimised by an on-site local farmer's shop, and the roof gardens can act as vegetable plots, as well as thermal insulation.
Most green initiatives are actually asking people to deny themselves something. You have to save energy, you have to change your lifestyle, you have to change your diet. What we wanted to show was actually we could achieve a higher quality of life at the same time as dramatically reducing an environmental impact. One of the important factors that we've tried to address here is this concept of solar urbanism, which is actually designing new city blocks around the need to maximise renewable energy, but at the same time as providing a good streetscape and something that really can fit into a modern city. Many town planners have been rejecting these ideas because they couldn't see how classical urban design concepts could be reconciled with the need for taking on board renewable energy and sustainable lifestyle concepts.
This is the Hockerton Housing Project, embedded into the landscape north of Nottingham. It's the UK's first earth-sheltered, self-sufficient ecological housing development.
One element about the houses was that they had to be economic. A lot of other earth-sheltered designs are one-offs, designed specifically for one person, and usually with a fairly high budget. This had to be fairly low budget, had to be very buildable in the sense that we weren't going to have specialists in to do any of the work, which is why we came to the form of a terrace as opposed to 5 separate houses. Everything for the houses had to come off the shelf at the builders merchants. It had to be a very low-tech solution, so it wouldn't be in the realms of the specialist. Anybody could go and do it. You could just go down to local builders merchants, get the materials, get them delivered and get on with it.
The houses, with their distinctive 19-metre-long conservatories, are amongst the most energy-efficient purpose-built dwellings in Europe.
The principles governing were that it had to have no heating requirement, and once you start off with that requirement, then the design, the built form is going to revolve around that. And then you've got to look at the orientation, you've got to look at the construction, the materials. Everything about the house has got to be geared towards this lack of heating requirement.
The roof, floor and rear wall are all insulated using polystyrene foam that's been blown without the use of CFCs or HFCs.
We were also then able to moderate the kind of external environment of the houses by buffer zones along the front to the conservatories and the earth sheltering on the back. And what that in reality means is that there's no part of the house which will ever see freezing. But also in summer the earth has a cooling effect, so it will never overheat.
The houses were designed to be heated by body heat from the occupants, waste heat from appliances like fridges, freezers and TV sets, and solar gain from the conservatories. Broadly speaking, it's about a third from the occupants, a third from the appliances and a third from the sun. On cooler days, a heat recovery unit transfers 80% of the heat in outgoing air to warm the air being taken into the house. And a heat pump takes heat from the conservatory and uses it to heat water for baths and washing.
We love living in the house. It's very spacious, it's very light, it's very warm when you want it to be warm and cool when you want it to be cool. There's lots of space for the children. There's lots of nice areas that you can relax in, and it functions really well. It does what it's supposed to do.
Because there's no heating system, there are no automatic controls.
you find yourself just reacting without having to think about it. It's not a great effort. You notice the temperature going up or down and you act accordingly. You either open skylights or you close doors, but it becomes a very natural way of being in the house.
Living at Hockerton involves more than just being in tune with the house. It's about living in harmony with the environment.
I think the thing about Hockerton is that the lifestyle encompasses so many different aspects of sustainability, and so there are lots of things to think about. We have to think about how we manage the 26-acre site in an environmentally friendly way. We have to think about how we grow enough food for the 5 families. We have to think about what kind of detergents and toiletries we use.
From the start, the community has had very little reliance on external services.
Once you've done away with the need for oil or gas for heating, then you start thinking about trying to do away with electricity being supplied by outside utilities, and then it follows on that you start looking at water and sewage treatment.
Drinking water is rainfall collected from the roofs. The underground storage tank holds enough water for up to 250 days. It's filtered, then sterilised with ultraviolet light before use. The reservoir takes water from fields and the road. It's filtered through sand before being used for washing and other domestic or agricultural purposes. Wastewater is treated using reed beds. Bacteria on the roots feed on the effluent material, leaving water that is close to bathing water quality. The purified water flows into the reservoir to maintain supplies even in dry weather. The community is also moving towards being self-sufficient in electrical energy. 2 small wind turbines have recently been installed in the field to the east of the site, and the roofs now have sets of south-facing photovoltaic panels. The renewable sources are supplying about 70% of the site's electricity needs. But it still relies on fossil fuel to power at least some of its transport needs.
One of the conditions of the leases on the house is that each family can only have 1 fossil fuel car. And even then, you question each journey that you make in that fossil fuel car.
Car sharing is an established part of Hockerton community life, and now they're generating their own electricity, they have been trying out electric and dual fuel vehicles. But most local journeys continue to use pedal power. Even the approach road is part of the project's low energy plan.
The plan was always to have 5 dwellings of some sort, because that would mean that we wouldn't have to go for an adopted road, which would involve street lighting and tarmac and all the rest of it. So 5 was always going to be a maximum. We didn't want the situation where we had very low impact houses but a high impact road down to them.
Although 5 dwellings remain the limit for the Hockerton site, the project offers many pointers to a more sustainable lifestyle.
For other people who may be thinking about the way they live and the kind of changes that they make, they can do things on a more limited scale. You know, it doesn't have to be like this big. There are smaller things, smaller changes that people can do that still make a really big difference in terms of the environment and the way we live. And so, you know, it doesn't have to be this way. This is just one model. But you could take any one aspect and incorporate that into your lifestyle, and you would be making a difference.